Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. So today I'm going to be doing a little bit of sculpture. I have this original Sculpey here and I'm going to be using this to create a sculpture. I also have all of these fantastic sculpting tools, but I'm not going to be using them. Instead, I'm going to be using this. This is a fork. That's right. So today I'm going to be sculpting with this lovely fork. It's a pretty good fork. It gets the job done. I'm also going to be using a bit of wire and tin foil and as well as my hands because you kind of need those things when you're making sculptures with polymer clay. So now that we've got a handle on all of our supplies, let's dig into it. So to start this off, I'm gonna actually have to make an armature for me to add on the clay to, and then I'm gonna be adding tin foil and stuff around the outside, maybe using a little bit of tape here and there to, stick it all together. But overall, I just want a rough shape of what I'm sculpting first so that I can add clay on top of that. And this is so that the clay is not too thick, and that way it will bake evenly, and it also won't be too heavy and I won't waste too much clay. Pro tip, tin foil is cheaper than clay. So I'm just making some oblong sort of shapes, and I just want it to be a bit of an oval, sort of rounded, long shape, and I'm bulking that up with a few different sort of rounds of wire just so that it turns into a 3D object. And then after this, I'm going to stuff it with tin foil and cover it in tin foil. I'm also adding 4 long sticky outy parts on this as well, and these are going to be the legs of the thing that I'm actually creating. And now that it's all covered up and in a nice sort of shape of the thing that I'm creating, let's dive into adding on the details with the clay. So if you haven't guessed already, I'm creating a dog, but not just any kind of dog. I'm making a corgi. Corgis are actually my dream dog. I love them. They're my favorite breed of dog and they're super duper cute and I love them so much. And when I got the idea to create a corgi out of polymer clay, I just couldn't resist it. So I'm using my hands to just sort of pat down thin parts of clay, and then I'm adding it onto the base. Now I'm using that handle of that fork to just sort of press it down onto the armature, and also using it to sort of push bits of clay into each other so that they connect. I'm also using a little bit of liquid fimo just on the base itself before I add the clay, and this is actually going to be really helpful to keep it sticking to the base so that it doesn't end up like falling off or anything like that. I'm also using that handle of the fork to just sort of push areas into different shapes that I'm trying to get for the anatomy of this dog. I kind of want it to look somewhat realistic, and yeah, that tool is actually not that bad actually compared to other tools, but it's not the best. But this is a challenge, so that's why I'm doing it. So now it's time to add some details, and I'm using one of the prongs on that fork to just poke some little holes into the nose, and yeah, it's actually coming along pretty nicely actually. I'm quite surprised with the shape of the dog's head. It does look a bit like a corgi. There are some slight differences though. I also used the side of that fork to just sort of cut into the snout because I wanted this dog to have an open mouth, and that was quite scary because the fork definitely is not sharp and it's not made for cutting things. It's not a knife, it's a fork, but it did the job. Now here we can see the corgi looks very corgi-like, And it needs one thing though, it needs a fur texture, and this is actually perfect because this fork has little prongs, and I'm using the prongs on the fork to scratch in a fur texture all over the surface of the clay. It's actually quite useful too because I don't have to worry too much about keeping the clay soft and smooth looking because we're going to rough it up anyways. Now I do wish the fork's pointy parts were actually thinner because it would have turned out a little bit better. I would have gotten a bit better of a sort of fur texture, but it worked out pretty well. Now the last part of this sculpting with the fork part is for me to push in some little toes on this little doggy because he doesn't have any toes yet. He just has little nubbin feet. And now it is time to paint him, and this is the exciting part because it starts looking more like a corgi because it needs those typical corgi patterns. At the moment, it just looks like a really short dog without a tail, but we're going to make it a corgi. So I started off with a layer of raw sienna, which is a nice sort of warmish brown color. I decided to go with a slightly darker brown color because this is what is actually going to end up being all of the shadows in this fur. It is the first layer of paint, which I like to do first before I add on the highlights and the mid-tone. After that layer is dry, I'm going to go in and add the highlights in a sort of dry brush technique, and that's going to have all of those, it's going to show all of those details in the fur texture really nicely. So for the highlight colors, I am using a yellow-orange color, and I'm adding a little bit of white as well for the extra bright highlights, and overall it's coming out pretty nicely. Now we can't forget about the typical white patterns on the corgi. He has a little sort of white muzzle on his face, as well as little white feet and a white belly, and I love the patterns on the corgi. I think they're super cute. I'm also adding a little bit of grey into that area as well, mainly on the chest area, which is going to help add, just show off those details a little bit more. And after this, it's time to add the details on the face. So here's the final results, and I can't believe I sculpted this without any tools except a fork. Yeah, it was quite interesting. I'm actually used to using minimal tools because I only bought my sculpting tools recently, but adding that fork in there definitely had a few challenges. I had to sort of deal with the shape of the handle when I was using it to flatten out areas, as well as the sort of squareness of the pointy parts of the fork, if that makes any sense at all. I have no idea. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was super fun to do, and I love the final results. It's probably one of my favorite things I have sculpted thus far. It's very cute, it's very corgi-like, it's very derpy as well. It turned out much more derpier than I sort of hoped. I think the eyes are a little bit too big, but it's cute. So anyways, I hope you guys have a forkin' great day. Please smash like and subscribe to get your scribble fix in the future, and I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.